Hey everyone. I loved this conversation you're about to hear with Hannah's friends, Liz Harrington. She is an Ivy League graduate who was in the corporate world and took a leap from that to do her own relationship and dating coaching. She started her own business online. It's a great conversation about her evolution through these many stages. She went viral with some of her coaching and dating advice. So it was great to talk with her about what that experience was like, especially as a woman in this field and online. She's just really brilliant. She had a lot of great insights about finding her own way and finding her own happiness. And I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Liz Harrington.
Welcome to Are We Happy Yet? I'm Hannah Buzzo, licensed therapist.
And I'm Jane Thatcher Hahn, licensed clinical social worker.
We're two longtime friends deep in the work of helping people untangle their lives.
And let's be honest, untangling our own along the way.
We started this podcast because even as mental health goes mainstream, more and more people are feeling anxious, disconnected, and burnt out than ever before.
So what gives? We're exploring how everything from therapy and psychedelics to culture, politics, creativity, and relationships shape our well-being.
Think of this as your weekly reality check, gut punch, and group hug all rolled into one.
We're here to ask the big questions, share what we're learning, and laugh a lot while we figure it out.
This is Are We Happy Yet? Let's get into it. So today we have a dear friend of mine, Liz Harrington, who is an online coach and has created an online business. She's gone from a really interesting experience going to an Ivy League school and having a really interesting corporate job to then deciding to throw it all away and work for herself. So Liz, we're so excited to talk to you and hear about that transition and where you are in your life, and appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to be here.
So walk us through, Liz, talk us through your background, your career goals, and how you kind of got to this place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up in a pretty conservative family where education was the top value. And both my parents actually graduated from Cornell. So it was kind of an expectation that both my sister and I would end up at a really high caliber school or an Ivy League. And of course, lo and behold, we actually both got into Cornell. I think partially truly because both of my parents went there. I'll say that. But I went to Cornell and I studied undergrad in hospitality. And I ended up getting a corporate job at Expedia Group right after college. And it was I think as a lot of us are in college, we have no idea what the hell we want to do with our lives. And so it's kind of all right, whoever wants to hire me, great, Mm-hmm. And so when they hired me, I was cool. It was a sales account management role. And I was in that role for 8 years, not that exact role. I was promoted a couple of times. I initially was in San Francisco, then moved to New York, and then ultimately Denver. And Expedia kind of carried me along the way. And, unlike other friends who would complain endlessly about their corporate jobs, in so many ways, I was I actually have it pretty good. I have very flexible work hours. I love the people I work with. I get to travel at a discount. The company has, again, moved me to multiple cities. I am using a lot of the skills that I have. And at the same time, I just kind of had this gnawing as I continued up in the trajectory of my career that was just I want more. And I knew that I had something that I wasn't fully being able to express in a corporate job. And so ultimately, last April, it was April 15th exactly, I quit my corporate job of 8 years and then moved into the online coaching space. And here we are today. Yeah.
Do you feel like the corporate woman moving up the ladder with a gnawing, there's something more is a common archetype experience?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think back to the people that I worked with at Expedia Group, and I would say some of the top performers were the ones who ultimately left and decided to go the entrepreneurial path. And so I think it's to be an entrepreneur, obviously, it's not just about being smart and creative. You have to be highly motivated and highly dedicated and committed. And so I do think there's something with just that work ethic that I noticed at Expedia, where those that I think were maybe confident enough to actually explore that path, knew they had that ability in them. But I think a lot of us are craving this form of creative expression and kind of paving our own path because of how accessible it is. And so I hear so many people talking about it in the corporate world, that thought, maybe I could be doing something else that would be better suited towards me, but I don't know if I could really make it work,
So going back to the college piece, I'm thinking back to when I was 16 and 17. I did want to go to an Ivy League for a minute, but then my parents said no. So, and not that I ever would have gotten in. But all that aside, like most of us at 16 and 17 have no clue what we want to do. And we're going to college to like drink and party. So what was it like for you to be in a completely different place so young?
Completely different place, meaning
like focused on a goal, knowing what is expected of you. And it sounded like you were fully on board with that versus college being a time of exploration. And
yeah. I mean, it's funny you bring that up because like, even though Ivy League have a reputation of being like no fun, so much competition, everyone in the library studying all day. It's like, yeah, that's true. But also like people still party, right? Like I was in a sorority. There were lots of people that were both social and academic. But I think the difference is that there is a lot of competition at an Ivy League school that I think for me was really challenging. I was depressed a lot of college, honestly, because it was just, there was so much pressure and it felt like there were a lot of people that were motivated by the wrong things, you know, like very superficial aspects, whether it be getting the top grades or, you know, getting, of course, like a really good job, quote unquote, or even just like being pretty, right? Like all those pressures of being perfect in every single category of life felt like it was, it was just really, really true and prominent at an Ivy League school.
Because we're competing for something actually, or because that's just like baked into the culture. If you're there, like you are top of whatever. Is it that more like a cultural feeling at the school?
I think it honestly comes from everyone's families. You're there for a reason. You probably had those values all throughout high school too. Competition, succeeding in every category of life. Yeah.
I'm really curious to dive into this more when we learn more about your online business and the women that you've coached in the dating world, because I came from a very different background than that. And so I'm curious how your family life then affects how you show up for the dating world. So you're in this corporate world. You're like, I want to do something else. You started an online coaching company organization. Tell us about it. Tell us how you chose what to do, how you made the transition.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started my coaching business back in 2020, like many other people did, but in the health and wellness space. So I was like doing intuitive eating coaching initially, and it was fun, but I felt as though just talking to somebody about intuitive eating and health and wellness was just scratching the surface of like the deeper problems that were holding them back from going to the gym and, you know, actually listening to their body and all of those things. And so in 2022, when I moved to Denver from New York, I got certified as a hypnotist. And I had actually explored hypnotherapy for myself years before and had seen tremendous results. And so I was curious to have a modality to help people to go a little bit deeper and dig into their subconscious. And so I paired it with health for a little bit, but I just actually started growing disinterested with health in general. And I was instead more interested in relationships. And personally for myself, like I had struggled so much in dating and relationships, whereas my health and wellness issues had kind of subsided at that point. And so it's, you know, I just started to study all of that material so much. And the two of them just kind of found each other almost. And I saw that there was this really perfect, like magical combination of attachment work mixed with hypnosis. And I had never seen anything like it on the marketplace before. And I put it out there on Instagram, of course, which was like so terrifying. So like, what are people going to think of me? Like, this seems so cringe, especially because at the time I was single, but I was seeing progress in myself by combining those two together, seeing wildly different results in the way I felt about myself and the men that I was attracting as well. And so I put it out there and it like instantaneously got traction. People were really interested. And so I started to just do sessions with people one off. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. This is great. And also, I don't have the bandwidth for this. Like I'm exhausted, you know, like I don't have the time in a corporate job to really dedicate to having sessions with people and continuing to refine my own skill set. It was about a year and a half or so of kind of doing it on the side, but not really ever fully doing it on the side even. That's when I was like, I just have to take the leap and like try this and see if I can build something out of it.
What was the cringe putting out your first like offering or like?
Totally. I think, you know, people ask all the time, like, what makes someone a dating expert? Like, who are you to start talking about dating online and say, come to me and pay me money to teach you how to date, especially as somebody who's single. Although I still believe that single people can give amazing dating advice. And sometimes the people that were married in their, 20s are the people that are going to give the worst dating advice, right? So anyways, I was terrified. I'm like, what are men going to think of this that I'm dating? Like, what are some friends that are maybe a little bit more conservative going to think about this? What are my colleagues at Expedia going to think about this? Like, I hope they don't find this account, you know?
Did anyone find it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
What was the responses?
People would be like, so you have this business, huh? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, I found that account. It's cool. Like so awkward at work, you know, because you're not even supposed to be talking about dating typically, like in a corporate culture, like let alone talking about somebody like coaching somebody on the side for dating. So I just always was like, please, let's just not talk about this. Like, let's get back to work. Let's just not.
So, okay, what is a dating coach? I feel like I got married before dating coaches were a thing, I think maybe, because I never heard about it until we started doing this podcast. And I'm sure it could have been useful for me, but how would you explain it to somebody?
Well, it's a great question because I think there are so many forms of dating coaches depending on the niche or the subset of people that you're really targeting. And so a dating coach could be somebody who's helping those who are newly divorced and maybe have never used dating apps before. A dating coach could be specifically for men, a specific, type of man that's looking to improve their dating skills, emotional intelligence, ability to talk to women. There are dating coaches that really focus on women that are in a little bit more of their quote unquote masculine corporate energy, which I always laugh at a little bit. So for me, I initially was focusing on women that were self-described as anxiously attached and highly sensitive. And I was helping them to uncover the subconscious blocks that really prevented them from actually showing up as their most secure, authentic, and empowered self in dating. So I kind of combined that subconscious work with the more like tactical work, but I was never a dating coach that was like giving people scripts, telling people exactly what to say to a man to get them to come hither. Whereas I know like some dating coaches, it's like, it's all rule based, So I think it's a great question, but it actually is so tough to answer because it really is so broad.
What do you make of this whole like trend or movement towards like everyone can have an online business and it can be your full-time thing or the side, just make an Instagram account? What's your take on that?
I think everybody should do it, actually, if they want to. I don't think everybody should make it their full-time business because, like I was sharing earlier, not everybody necessarily has the desire or skill set to be an entrepreneur, and that's totally fine. But I am actually one of those people who love social media, not to consume, but to express and to work through a lot of the blocks you might have around being seen, being rejected, being judged, all of those things. I think it's the greatest personal development journey that one could ever have. And I actually think that a lot of my growth as a human being has actually come way more from being on Instagram than like any therapy or like personal development healing that I've ever done. In fact, like being on Instagram, like literally cured my like chronic acid reflux, like, symptoms that I had from like not being fully expressed in various ways.
Wow. Yeah. I can really, I'm a very voyeuristic on social media. Like I have problems posting and I can see for those reasons where I'm like, what will they think? And I have to curate an idea or a concept of myself or all of those pieces. So it's really interesting that you say that. And the other interesting piece is a lot of times therapists are like, social media is so bad for you. It hurts you. It hurts people, which is also true. But you're saying like, to me, it sounds a little bit like your approach and your relationship with it has been a chance for you to push those boundaries and explore those things.
Yeah. And I think like, I hear you. And I think a lot of people, of course, therapists maybe say that, you then start comparing yourself to other people. And yeah, of course that happens. And I'm like, that's a great opportunity to notice that and to work through that. Right. So I've, of course, been triggered on social media or have my moments of being like, I don't want to be on here. Like this person's bothering me and make me feel bad about myself. Like, great. I should probably look into that. So I think there are actually so many avenues truly to use it for healing, while also like being mindful of your, I think, natural tendency to want to just distract yourself by scrolling all day. I'm probably one of those unique people that doesn't have that desire or tendency. Like I've never been a social media scroller. But I think it's partially too, because since I have been a content creator for a while, like technically since 2020, I'm like, I don't want to spend so much time on there. I just want to use it for my business and then get off and like read a book.
That's because you don't have a bunch of cute cat and horse videos, because that's exclusively what's on my social media.
That sounds healthy to me.
It's a great time. It's a great time. I'm always like, hey, babe, look at this. Look at this. That's kind of the entirety of our relationship now, is that I show my husband cute cat videos and he shows me funny videos, and that's the whole thing.
I mean, hey, dating coach over here, that's a healthy relationship.
Thank you.
Okay, but this is so interesting because I think, yes, like for the most part, social media is looked at as bad. You're saying it's been transformative for me from a business perspective and a personal growth perspective. So how do you use it for that? Like, how do you keep bumpers up for yourself? How do you know when things are like, tell us?
Yeah. I mean, I think my first like big test that I mentioned to you all before was initially, of course, just like posting content that was more vulnerable and felt more cringy to me. But I just noticed it's like, yeah, I posted all these vulnerable posts and like nothing happened. You know, none of my friends abandoned me. No one made fun of me. Like no one rejected me. And so that literally like rewired my subconscious, I say, in real time, to realize that all of those fears were actually kind of false. But my second big test, I would say, was when I went viral and I suddenly truly had all of these people coming at me, you know, the trolls, right? And all the people saying things that are crazy, like, you know, you're a cult leader, like, you know, like you are saying things that are so harmful to people, like harmful to society. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, should I just delete this account? Right? Like I went into full catastrophe mode. And luckily one of Hannah and I's shared friends has also gone viral before. And she really talked me through all of it and basically, you know, just shared how it is part of the territory. And also actually, if you just put your hands up and don't defend yourself, people will come to your defense, which was so interesting to see that actually happen and to see the conversations happening on my posts in real time, which actually, for the most part, were generally pretty respectful. And so I, you know, if I ever saw anything disrespectful come up, I was like, you know, I'm deleting this. And I think that is the boundary, you know. And I did put like, you know, certain swear words, you can put them on in your Instagram settings for those comments to be immediately like deleted or blocked. And so I did do that to like just create that boundary before I even had to get involved. But yeah, I would delete anything that was extremely rude. But otherwise, I'm like, you know, if people want to have a conversation about like this particular like dating technique or like avoidance or whatever they want, like go at it. But generally, I'm going to actually stay out of it for the most part, unless someone's directly asking me a question or I really see a reason to get involved. Because I do think there's a slippery slope. And people talk about how, you know, you have a different like nervous system response to trolls being on kind of like your conditioned response. Right. And so like, I am not a fighter. That's my like lowest response of the four. And so I would never fight with anybody. But what I would do was, of course, like I would freeze a lot of the time and just not do anything, kind of like what I'm saying, which maybe to some degree was okay and healthy. But I would find myself like more so in the fawning space where I think that would be my natural tendency, would try to be people please those people in the comments to appease them and to de-escalate things. And I'm just like, you know what? I realized after time, it's just these people, there's no way to reason with them. And so again, that's why I kind of decided to just stay out of things.
And that's like the healing work you're saying. Oh, I'm noticing I do this in real life and I do it here. And instead of doing it here, I'm going to do something different.
Totally. Yeah. Because I'm a big people pleaser, like for sure. So it's crazy to see it show up in that way.
I think that's too another thing about social media is how do we maintain authenticity, especially when you're like promoting yourself and trying to make money in a business? Can you speak to that intersection?
Oh my gosh, it's so challenging because like authenticity is one of my top values. And at the same time, like when you're on social, consuming things because you kind of just have to some degree, or even collaborating with other people that are in your space, it's really, really hard not to be influenced by their opinions and start to second guess your own, especially when you're looking to monetize something. So you're like, all right, what's working for other people in my space? Like who's making the most money or seems to make the most money? And how are they constructing their posts? What are they talking about? What are their beliefs? And especially with dating and relationships, because in so many ways, it's not clear cut at all. There's so many opinions, right? And none of them are necessarily true or false, in my opinion. It can just get really confusing to know, like, what do you actually believe? And to be able to speak to what you really believe and share authentically. It's scary. And honestly, again, it's just confusing. You get really muddled in who you are with all these other people in the field.
What's wild to me about that is it feels like life on crack. Like it's like,
it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting we're having this conversation because even me, I consider myself a curious, deep thinker, but even me, I'm like, have never thought about social media being a microcosm of the real world, because the same questions I have about social media are like this person has a perfect life. What are they doing? How much money do they really make? It's the same questions I have in real life. It just looks different, right? And so it's a lot of what's authentic, what's real. Do I even want this? Why am I comparing myself? Why is this triggering me? Right? It's a lot of the same shit. It's just interesting that we paint social media with such a broad brush instead of like helping people learn how to like navigate it in a healthier way.
But I think it's two things. To me, it seems like it's a microcosm, and all the same shit that's happening in real life is happening in your social media world, and it's something else, and it's an algorithm, and it's photoshopped, and it's way less scary because you're not in person.
So that's the
that's the part, and that's the part that isn't real, but there's always sometimes a real person behind it. So yeah, it's very complex.
Yeah, it's complex and it's interesting, especially in the dating space. A lot of people that are dating coaches and relationship coaches, they promote these like very lavish lifestyles with their husbands that are, making millions of dollars and these like really amazing vacations they're taking. And they're kind of like, hey, if you work with me, you can have this. And I've always been like really repulsed by all of that because it's like, one, are those really the values that you should be seeking if you're a single woman looking for a relationship, just a man who can give you a lavish lifestyle? Two, are these people even being genuine and authentic? Who knows, right? And I'm in an interesting situation because my boyfriend's extremely private. And so his face has never been seen on social media. No one knows his name. He's never been tagged. In a way, I'm kind of grateful because now my content is more so around actually, how he treats me, like the emotional support that I get in sharing those stories versus promoting the dinners that we go to and the champagne and whatever we're doing.
But are those the people who are looking for dating coaches? Are the people who have a specific person in mind?
I think that there's a lot of women out there that are like, would desire this, this masculine man who's going to whip them away to wherever, Hawaii, at a 5-star hotel. I mean, it sounds fun, right? Like, sure, but there's more to life. There's more to relationships.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear. And again, I'm coming from a different lens. I was a struggling artist when I met my husband, and we both lived below the poverty, like far below the poverty line, because we were just trying to make it as artists. And it was so easy. And so it was, okay, that's not fair. I dated a lot of people before him. I dated a lot of unavailable men. I dated people who were bad for me. I was shitty to people and people were shitty to me. And I made poor choices and good choices, all of it. Right. And we met online. And what was easy was we met, and then it was like, cool, let's do this. Like, there wasn't like, should I call? Should I wait? When should we have sex? What are we doing here? And the value, I mean, I know this is really different than a lot of women, and I would do it differently now that I'm older and I have my own business, but I didn't have values around money, and I didn't have values around even really success. So we connected around art and joy and love and sex and those kinds of things. And so I'm just curious how that fits in with the dating world. And I don't know how that looks to you from your lens.
Well, I just think that's so beautiful, and what like a grounded, authentic way to attract and pursue and navigate a relationship. Whereas like, I do think that social media, again, like when you're single, you just can start to get a little bit muddled about like, what do I really value in a relationship? What do I really desire and want? And it can leave people very confused about even what a good man is, what a good husband or partner would be. And so I think a lot of what you're describing too, about not having to like second guess and question yourself and have to worry about rules and like playing games and tactics and all of that is amazing.
Again, we were very poor. Let me remind everybody, like we were selling instruments to pay our rent or our mortgage. So like take that all with a grain of salt, as you will. And things change, things change as you get older. But
well, that's like why I wanted Liz to have you on is, we're therapists. I think I'm on the lens of the therapist camp that are a little bit more accepting of coaches than some other therapists that are like total fuck the coaches and like they should be banned. I don't believe that. But that's the reason why specifically I wanted to have on, because your work and your content is not at all, do this, call him if he calls you after 3 days or go on this many dates. Yours is very like, what do you feel? What do you want? What does this bring up inside of you? What does this feel familiar to? And I think that's something that I have a problem with the coaching industry is like just giving people advice, especially women. And that's just perpetuating, I think, the systemic thing of like, shitting on women and making them feel that their feelings and voice don't matter. So your work is a little different, which is what I want to highlight is yours isn't about giving someone a book of rules to follow. Yours is, what do you want? What do you like? How does this feel? Does this communication feel good to you? Does it not? I think you do a really good job of helping women attune to themselves and figure out their own dating goals and wants and values and not just a playbook.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I describe my work very much so about like leaning into your own intuition, leaning into alignment, like true authenticity in terms of your own values in a partnership. And then ultimately, yeah, going beneath the surface and like looking at those like subconscious wounds that are still holding you back from, again, showing up as your most secure, authentic self.
So we like throw around the word attachment all the time. So if somebody's just tuning in and doesn't know what attachment styles are, can you describe them? And then can you describe why you chose to make them so integral to your work?
Yeah. So I'll actually share, I don't use attachment styles in my work at all anymore. Yeah.
Excellent.
So I actually decided to completely nix them about 6 months ago at this point. I think that they're a good framework initially for people to essentially understand like repetitive behaviors or traits that they're seeing in themselves. And they're essentially their coping mechanisms and responses to certain situations and relationships. But I found that they were extremely limiting because a lot of people would come to me and say, hey, yeah, I'm anxiously attached. I have this fear of abandonment. I can get kind of clingy. And that wasn't the full picture of the story. The truth of the matter was they also had a lot of the avoidant tendencies as well. And so I found that it was leaving people with a lot of blind spots about their relationship behaviors and patterns. And people just get so stuck on the label and so stuck on the man's label too. And I wanted to call in clients that were a little bit more open to looking at the full spectrum of their relationship experiences and rather putting a label of anxious avoidant on them or the man that they're dating, actually just noticing like where they are currently in, like, are they currently in a little bit more of like an anxious space or a little bit more of an avoidant space? But again, I don't even use that language anymore. It's just like, hey, like, are you feeling like you want to pull away a little bit? Are you feeling like you actually are really nervous? And so you're leaning in a lot, maybe a little bit too much. So I've found actually, probably not surprisingly, that since making that shift, I've called in women that I would say are a little bit further along in their healing journey. And I think for somebody who is always straddling the line between making sure you want to stay in scope as a coach, it's really important to me to work with people that have already been to therapy, like have done that kind of initial work where they are further along in their journey and are just kind of more so looking to clean up some of like the lingering pieces.
So what would you say from your experience are like, this person would be good for a coach and this person probably would benefit from a therapist? Like, how do you see the difference?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I often say, like, if you are still experiencing emotionally immature behaviors, you know, like a lot of reactivity, a lot of defensiveness, if you are in like patterns, like going back to your ex and you're just like not able to get back out of them. And if you do consider yourself somebody who is like really insecurely attached in some sort of way, that's probably like more in the therapeutic zone. Of course, if you have trauma or like any type of like abuse in your past that hasn't been worked through, like please go to a therapist. And so
I graduated yet. I still need a therapist.
Oh my gosh. I mean, well, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because we all are maybe like a little bit, we experience some of those things. Like we all have moments of reactivity or defensiveness. And so I'm like, when I ask people, is it like more than 50% of the time when you're having a really big reactive experience, you know, more than 70% of the time? And if it is like more often than not, like I think therapy is probably going to better serve you, because I do see coaching a little bit more so as like, actually it's more action oriented. It's not about reflecting on your past and like digging through why you are the way you are. It's more about taking the actions, like cutting off the guy who you're just mad about, who's nice, but isn't your person. It's about feeling into those connections. Like that's where I think that I can play a role, but I've learned it's a very fine line. And I'm constantly being like, gosh, does this person need to just go back to therapy? Like when I'm working with people.
Well, my thought process on this, like why there's been such a big explosion of coaching post-COVID, I think it's definitely like all of the COVID factors, right? People being more online, more isolated. A lot of people like went through this dark soul of the night wanting to figure out their purpose. But I also think good therapists are hard to find. And so I think part of the coaching piece too is I think people have a lot of shitty experiences with therapy, whether it's just outright harmful or a lot of clients, they have a therapist that just sits there and nods and listens. I mean, and that is kind of how we are all trained, is to do that. And then further working in the field, you tend to see that isn't really helpful. But I think the other piece with the coaching is people like don't trust therapists or think therapy really works. And so perhaps they could benefit from it, but I think they could benefit from good therapy, which is tricky to find.
Totally agree. I hear that all the time. Like, gosh, like my therapist was just so checked out. I wasn't making any progress. She seemed like she didn't care. I think it's a little bit unfair because there's also a lot of coaches that are like that too, right? I think it's just humans in general, you know, it's practitioners in general. And obviously coaches typically take on way fewer clients than therapists. So they typically have more bandwidth to actually be really like present with people, hopefully. And coaches are, you know, technically they should have been someone who also had went through that experience. And so has a little bit more potentially the ability to relate to the client versus obviously therapists are like not required to like have gone through the experience of dating emotionally unavailable men. Maybe they have, and that can be helpful.
Most of them have. Most of the female therapists I know have dated some emotionally unavailable men. I'm not looking at you specifically. I'm just saying generally.
I mean, who hasn't, honestly?
I asked this to the last dating coach that we had. Is this like a straight world thing where people get dating coaches? Is the queer community doing this? Is this a certain socioeconomic group, a type of person? What are you seeing?
It's a great question. I have only served heterosexual women and men before. So that is all I probably also track those types of women because I often talk about female and male relationships because that's personally what I can relate to. And as a coach, I do think it's important to be able to embody what you teach in many ways. But I do think socioeconomically, there's definitely a group of women that are, very successful in corporate careers or entrepreneurship that have some extra cash flow that are essentially just outsourcing this service like a personal trainer. I also do some matchmaking work on the side with a company, and it's kind of similar, right? It's like sometimes people are just, they don't have time, right? They just need somebody to like really expedite the process for them. That being said, though, I do also have a lot of women that are just in very normal jobs, making, I think in some cases, probably less than 6 figures a year, and are seeking out dating coaches because it's so important to them. Yeah.
They're prioritizing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I hear a lot with my clients and my friends, dating sucks. We'll never find, like, I just hear this a lot. I only have like one single friend that likes dating. The rest hate it. So what would you say to someone who's feeling discouraged and tired of dating?
There are so many good men out there. I have so many single male friends that are looking for love. And if you actually shift your perspective and start literally looking for those men that are single, even if they're not your type, but just good men in general that are out there and looking for love, starting to put that into your field of awareness instead of all of the other stuff that I think a lot of women do, which is a lot of the content on social media that reinforces things like that, or talking to other single friends that are really pessimistic about dating. You need to move away from all of that, refocus the energy and attention, because I really do believe that like in many, many cases, your reality is born from those beliefs, thoughts, and feelings about what exists.
Do you have a story where you're with somebody that really sticks out to you, or somebody who had completely given up that found love or made dating work for them?
I mean, like, honestly, myself in certain ways. Like when I met my boyfriend, I was extremely frustrated. I was actually supposed to be on a date that day with some guy I met on Hinge who was being super flaky and was just not making plans. And I was just like, come on, like I don't have all day here, right? And so I ended up taking a walk, and I ended up meeting my boyfriend on that walk and bailing on the Hinge date. Obviously, he never heard back from me.
Bye.
And so I actually, you don't have to be, of course, like high vibe about dating all the time. Like literally that day I was feeling frustrated, and I allowed myself to feel that frustration. And I also had a thought on that walk, which was, I'm never going to meet anybody if I'm walking around just frustrated all of the time. Like, what would it look like for me to have a little bit more optimism? And then I literally met him like 5 minutes later. So there's lots of stories like that.
That's my thing. Like, I know that I have a partner, but like, dude, I miss dating. It was so fun. Like going out and about and going to a show and drinking and ending up at the strip club. It was just like fun, you know?
That too.
So it's like, I know I've definitely had horrible dates and horrible boyfriends and horrible experiences, but also I've also had so much fun in dating. And I wonder what it would be like for people to just be a little bit more fun and light about it.
And like, don't burn yourself out. Like when you stop having fun, maybe take a break, you know, yeah. Like I always say, do not do that, like swipe on Hinge for 15 minutes a day thing, because that's just going to burn you out and you're just forcing yourself to do something. Mm-hmm. Like it shouldn't be that hard. It actually isn't that hard. Just go have fun. Go pursue your hobbies and like communities and all that. And like, I really do think someone's going to show up.
Tell us one thing that our listeners could do this week to connect more with their intuition or get more aligned on dating.
I think that if you feel like you're somebody who's like disconnected with your intuition, first of all, like starting off in the morning, doing just like a body scan and just start to become like more familiar with the sensations in your body. Because a lot of times when people are disconnected with their intuition, it's just because they're distracted and disconnected with their internal sensation. And then throughout the day, like take a pause and notice like those internal sensations again. Like I often recommend people do that like 3 times a day. And then even like, you know, just ask yourself like little questions of like, hey, like what walk route do I want to take today? And just kind of listen to your body to provide a response of what route to take. So it's just these little moments of tuning in and connecting with yourself that eventually are going to lead to connecting, I believe, in like bigger ways. And the other thing I would say too is just really creating space for a lot of silence and, you know, space in nature and just like letting yourself have that like clear vessel, because we are just like flooded with information all day that literally like, you know, just creates like that type of like, you know, it almost like fills up our system with too much junk that we can't tune into our internal compasses.
And it's so easy to find a free body scan. If you've never done one, you can find a free body. It's a meditation where you kind of scan head to toe, put it into YouTube, put it into Google. There's so many great ones you can find. That's a great place to start.
Okay. So mental health in the news. Why are more and more people turning to coaches instead of therapists for help with dating? What do you think that says about our cultural expectation?
I mean, I think it's some of the things that we've talked about. Like one, definitely the way that coaches are promoting like what you can have. Versus therapists are not showing that embodiment or end result of like, often you don't even know if your therapist has a partner or not, right? I also think that there is like sometimes a level of comfort and intimacy with a coach that maybe you don't have right away with a therapist because you've absorbed a coach's content and you feel like you know them, quote unquote. You also feel like maybe they've gone through that exact experience that you're having. And so you feel like there's an opportunity to open up to them in a different type of way.
Okay. Cringe or cure? Do you feel like dating coaches online are offering like real healing, or are they just they're just like repackaging like old rules, old patriarchy, making them look good, being like, you can get this magical thing? Or are there some people out there that you're like, that's helpful, like that's helping somebody?
Yeah. I mean, I hope I'm helping somebody, so I hope I'm in that category. But yeah, like I do see a lot of things that are very much just like what you were describing of just like, it's just the patriarchy and essentially manipulating the way that you show up to get a masculine man to like you. And I'm just personally like, I'm so done with that content, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
It won't. It's good because the patriarchy is having its last little breath before it dies out in some places, hopefully.
Yeah. And it's just hilarious. Anyway. Like I share these roles with my boyfriend all the time and he's like, that would literally never work. Like it would never work unless the man is very superficial and like very disconnected from his own like internal knowing. And I'm like, yeah, and I wouldn't want to end up with somebody like that. I don't think most of my clients do either. And a lot of times, those kind of behaviors attract like very controlling narcissistic men. So it's kind of scary actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might be manly though.
They might be manly. That's about it. Maybe.
Liz, thank you so much. Yeah. If folks want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram, Liz_Harrington, and my website is liz-harrington.com. So either places you can get in touch with me there.
Cool. Thanks so much, Liz.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. You've been listening to Are We Happy Yet? A Green Roof Studios production.
This episode was recorded and produced by Hannah Buzzo and Jane Thatcher Hahn.
If you liked what you heard, rate, review, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every review on Apple or Spotify helps us grow and redefine what it means to be well in an unwell world.
Thanks for listening. Try to stay happy out there.